Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to African STEM Girl and welcome to today's session. So, today I'm very excited because we're going to be starting a new project. You're going to be building a to do list. For the past 4 days, you have been building a login and a sign up form. If you do not have that code, or maybe you missed those sessions for one reason or another, find it in our YouTube channel. And yeah, so I look forward to seeing your project. One thing that I realized I forgot to show you is how to deploy your project. What I mean by deploying is making it possible for other people to see your work, in terms of uploading it on a resource that allows you to just send somebody a link and they can easily see your work and what you have been working on. So I'll make sure for this project we do that. And then you guys can go ahead and do the same for your other project. And I look forward to seeing the work you have done. I have seen some of your work. Some of you have sent me your work on my WhatsApp and even on my email. And it really looks good. You have sent me screenshots. So I really, really like you guys have played with your own colors and all that. So it's really, really nice to see that you guys are actually being able to code this project that we are building. So, yes, so hi everyone. I can see you in the chat section. Hi. So I'm just going to share my screen and I'm going to start with accessing Visual Studio. Like I said, in case you do not have Visual Studio installed, it's not a big worry. There is an online version of it, and I have been using it as well so that you guys can have an idea of how to go about it. So the only downside is that you need the internet to access this. However, if you are able to download and install Visual Studio, that's still okay, and you can use it offline. However, this is a good solution for those who do not want to go through that route of downloading. I'm just going to send this link in the chat section so that whoever is joining us today can know what to do. So the next thing is we are going to create a folder, and I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to create a folder on my desktop, and I'm going to name it the to-do list. So I hope you guys know what a to-do list is and you have interacted with a to-do list before. So basically a to-do list, for those who might not be familiar, is a list. Most people write it on maybe a sticky note or a notebook that allows them to know the things that they want to do that day. And then once they do it, they tick it off. So I was not able to add a lot of functionality, or I'm not going to talk about a lot of functionality. I'm just going to show you how to create a list item and to delete it, to check that you have already done it and to actually delete it. So I'll go to my desktop and open up that folder we have just written. So what I have done is I have come back to my Visual Studio, clicked on open folder, and I'll go to desktop and click on to-do list and click open. So maybe your process might be slightly different. However, you just have to do the same thing. I am using Linux, or probably you're using Windows, but the goal is when you click on new folder, you will be able to navigate to where your projects are. And when I look here on my files, you click this icon here. When I click on this icon, I see that there is a folder called to do that has been created, and that is what we wanted to happen. Yeah, so the next thing we are going to do, because we are building using HTML and CSS and JavaScript, inside this to-do list, I can right click and click new file, or I can go to the top. There is an icon, the first one with a plus sign, and click new file and write index.html. I'll just agree to save changes. I'll also create a file, another file called, sorry, let me go again to-do list, and I can right click and create another file known as style.css. This is what we are going to add our style sheet or our styling. And the next one, the last one that I'm going to create is script.js. This is where we're going to add our interactivity code. So in the index.html, we are going to create the structure of our to-do list. Let me show you how I expect this to-do list to look like in the end, once we are done. So this is what I have. It's in dark mode. I created a lot of these projects in dark mode just because we are in an era where a lot of us like using dark mode. So I can create, I can put a name here and I say go live on YouTube. So this is normally something that nowadays is usually on my to-do list every day. So I'll click add and automatically I have it. So once I do it, I can just click on it and it will strike through and show it is done. And if I want, I can delete it as well. So those are some of the things that we are going to try and accomplish with our to-do list. So we are going to add an item, click add, see it visible here. Once we are done, tick it out. And once we want it deleted, if you want it completely deleted, we can click on the X icon and delete it. So that's what I want us to do. Yeah, so I have created a folder and written index.html, scripts.js, and style.css. So in my index.html, as usual, we're going to start with the doc type HTML. And in the last video, if you're not aware of what the doc type HTML does, it announces to the browser, or it tells the browser that here is the HTML document. I normally relate the doc type HTML with the student in class who always raises their hand up first whenever a teacher asks a question. Why is that? Because anytime I go to my search engine, a search engine is anywhere or a tool that allows you to be able to look up information. Anywhere I go to my search engine, I type, for example, if I want to type, what would I type? Maybe I'll type Tesla. Anytime I type Tesla and I click enter, I see several results. If I want to visit their website, whenever I click this name, as you can see, this is tesla.com. If I click that to visit their website, the doc type automatically alerts the browser. This is where you're going to find the HTML file. And this is very important because HTML contains the structure of the website. So we cannot, just like you cannot build or you cannot paint a house that does not have a structure the same way. You have to start with the structure. So you click, hi everyone, you click, and then when you click open, and when you open it, we get our Tesla website. If I right click to inspect this website, so right click anywhere on the website, and I go to elements, and let me just scroll up. The first thing that I see here is doc type HTML. Doc type HTML, let me repeat, it tells the browser where to find the HTML document. So that is the most important thing that we are going to add here. It alerts the browser that, hey, Oh, you're looking for the structure of the website? Here I am. So anytime you look for something, it's like it's raising up its hands. Hey, 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 hey. I am here. I am the structure of the website. That's exactly what, and that is why it's important to add it. The next thing is we add the HTML tag. The HTML tag is where we are going to write all our HTML code. So when you enclose it inside the HTML code, you're able to define that, okay, we enclose it inside the HTML code. It's basically the root element. We call it the root element. If you can compare it with like the oldest person in your family, maybe if it is your great grandmother or your grandmother, whoever is alive, you can say that they are the root of the family. So the same thing here, we have a HTML tag that acts as the root of the element where everything is enclosed inside of it. So after that, the HTML document is normally divided into two. It's divided into HTML, into head and body. So the head behaves like, like right now, I have a head and I have a body. Anything that is inside my head, you guys cannot see. But whatever is on my body, you can see. So head, we normally add information for the browser to see. I mean the search engine to see. When I typed Tesla, the developers of Tesla have to make sure that they give this search engine, that is Google, a lot of information so that when I type Tesla, the first thing I see is the Tesla website. So we have to make sure that we have put enough information in the header so that we can be able to find the website whenever we type, or anything associated with your website, the content in your website, whenever we search for it. So, for example, if you're building a website that has recipes, and maybe you only do chicken recipes or pizza recipes, the only thing you do is you make sure that if somebody types pizza recipes, let us see what will happen. Just a minute. For the person who is asking if they have started today, they need to start day 1 or 5. You can start off today, and then in your free time, that's the reason why it's on YouTube. You can watch back what we have done on your own free time. So you have the option. You can right now you can go and start from day one, or right now you can, because we are starting a new project, you can start with us this new project, and then in your free time you can go back and continue. So that is the good thing about having this on YouTube, is that you guys can revisit this content in your own time. So when I typed pizza recipes, as you can see, there is somebody here called ksurinstant.com. There is Love and Lemons. There is so many websites that I am seeing. And maybe if you search for the same name on your website, on the Google search on your side, you will find, maybe you might find some similar things or some different things. So it is important that you put the correct information in the head tag so that your search engine, or the search engine, can be able to give recommendations of your website whenever users search for things that you normally do. For example, I teach coding. I don't expect, if I type pizza recipes, my website to be seen here. That will mean that it is not what we expect it to do, or it's not working as expected, because I have not put the correct. And even it is very unlikely that the search engine will do that. So for the search engine to know what to do, we normally put the correct information in the head tag. The only information that we put in the head tag that the users see is what we call the title. So right now, I will first try and launch this website. even though we haven't added anything. Let me try and launch it so that you guys can see. So to launch it, I will just come back to my files and I will go to where it's written to-do list, and I'll go to my index.html, right click on it and click open with Google Chrome. So for me, those are the options, but normally you will go to where the files are and you will right click on the index.html. So currently there is nothing, it's a white document. So the reason why it's a white document is because we have not written anything, and the only thing we can see here at the top is index.html. Let me open two other websites. I'll open Netflix and I'll open YouTube. YouTube. So at the top, I can see the name Netflix. Here I can see YouTube. And here I can see index.html. I would want to change that so that I can see the name of my website as well, just like I am seeing Netflix and YouTube, because this helps users when they are moving from one tab to another to know where they want to go. So I am going to come here in my head, and to do that, I will use what we call the title tag. Title. And I'll call this to-do list. So you can put it as one word like that. Let me just put this as a small, however you want to write it. So now if I go to where my website is and I refresh, I will see that there is the name of the website appearing called to-do list. So what has happened is now our users are able to know where they are going and even to know how to easily find our website when they look for it. If they have opened so many tabs, like some of you normally do not close your tabs. If you have so many tabs open, you are able to navigate from one tag to another. So like I said, the HTML document is normally divided into two. The head tag, which contains information about the website, and one of the only information that you can add that the users will see is the title. The next is the body tag. So the body tag, this is where users will be able to see. So as you can see currently here, we have a white space. It does not look like Netflix, so it has some content, or YouTube where it has some content. So we go to where Netflix is. We go to our website and now we see what can we add so that we are able to see the content of the website. So I'll come here. Guys, can you focus? I think a lot of you are calling me. So if you just call me, just go ahead and put the question right next to it so that when I look at it, I just answer. However, if it is nothing important, let us focus and build this project. Okay, so focus kindly. So the next thing I'll get inside my body tag and I will create a container. And to create a container in programming, we normally use what we call the div tag. This div tag, I want you to relate it to how in the kitchen, I'm so sure, your mom puts, there is a container that has cereal, another container has rice, another container has flour, another container has maybe rice. So we do not mix rice with flour. We separate them with containers. The same thing in programming. You can create a container that allows you to group HTML elements together. So I'll come here and inside the div, I'll create a class known as header, because this is where I want to put my header. So So I'll come here in my header and I will create a header using a h2 tag. So there are 6 different types of headers. So the header that I'll do here is I'll create my to-do list. Oh yeah, to-do list. So I now have that header and I will just go ahead and create another container here. I mean a list tag that will now have our list items. So I write UL. So UL means an ordered list. So there are 2 ways you can add a list in HTML. You can use ordered list or unordered list. So we are going to use ordered list for today. So I'll come here and I'll say ordered list. And I will give it, I'll say maybe the one thing I want to do is post or go live on YouTube. I won't add too much of it. I will just add a few that we can just start with so that our list does not start empty. So I can say go live on YouTube and maybe go to the mall. Go to the mall. So I'll leave it at that point. So let me just write the word my. So if I look at this now, if I refresh, I can see that now I have a title called my to-do list and it has the word go live on YouTube. So I have just zoomed out so that you guys can be able to see that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make my my to-do list to be in dark mode. So I will come here to my style.css. CSS is where now we add styling. So styling, what we mean by styling is it's like you painting a house. You go and buy paint from the paint shop. You come with a painter and a paintbrush and you now paint the house. So we are going to now connect our HTML to our CSS because when you want to paint a house, you do not take the house to the paint shop. You bring the paint to the house. So the same thing here. So I'm going to connect the HTML to the CSS. So to connect it, I go to the head tag. Just below the title, I will write link and I'll say href. So href styles, it has to be exactly the name of the file, styles.css. And I write rel. Rel means what is the relationship between those 2 files. I write style sheet. And then I will write, so we have href, rel, and then I will write what is the type of text that is in that file. It's a CSS text. Then I will close it. So what now that means is our style.css is connected now to our index.html. So I'll go to our style.css and the next thing that I am going to do is now to add stuff like the background color and stuff like that. So I'll come here and I'll say, so to add the background color, I will add the background color to the body of the file. So I'll come here and say body. I'll say background color to be. So I'll give it a particular shade of black. Maybe for those who do not know how to add color in CSS, you can add a color in 3 ways. The first way is using the name of the color. I can come here and write black. If I look at my to-do list, if I refresh it, now it is in dark mode. Okay, I can also come and add color using 2 more other ways, using what you can use a tool we call color picker. So with color picker, I'll just pick one of the color codes. So I'll just also drop this link in the chat section so that you guys can go ahead and try it out in your free time and get your colors, the ones that you want to add. Okay. So I'll come here to my code, and just by moving this circle, I can be able to find different shades of black. It is showing up here. It might not seem like this, but if I move, as you can see, if I move towards the red, you can even add different shades of red, whichever you want. So you will go ahead and choose the color that you want, and I can scroll down and be like, okay, I want a particular shade. So there's no right or wrong, it's just a preference of whatever you want. Okay. So in this case, if for example I wanted to pick this shade, there are several values here. So I can use this one hashtag. We call that hexadecimal because it has 6 numbers. So in mathematics or in school, I'm so sure you have learned a shape with 6 sides is called a hexagon. So you can also add a number, a mixture. It's usually mostly a mixture of numbers and words. So here, if I add this will give me a particular shade of black. You might not see as if it makes a difference, but sometimes when people are designing websites, they like to be specific. The other one, we have what we call RGB. So RGB means red, green, and blue. So it means it is a mixture of, this black is a mixture of 20% red, 20% green, and 20% blue. So to add that, if I want to add it using RGB, I'll come here and I'll say RGB, and then into brackets, I will put 20. So sometimes you can write the percentage. Other times, I believe it's not necessary. So it's whichever you want. So now, as you can see, it has added my color. And if you want to know it has added the color successfully, you click, you will see a box appearing next to it with the color that you have chosen. So you can choose the color in those 3 ways. And even if you hover, you can see they have also brought that color picker here inside our CSS. So this is just something that they do to help us when we are coding. So for me, I want it to be black. So let me go back and add the code that I had specified. Somebody's saying their Visual Studio is not working. What do you mean it's not working? Is it showing you white? How do you know? My question is, how do you know it is not working? So if I have sent it in, I've sent the link again. Maybe you can explain more what you mean by it is not working, so that I can understand. So now if I refresh, I have my dark mode, but guess what? I can no longer see the word, my to-do list and everything, because everything, the text was black, and I have now put the background color as black. So to change the color of the text, I'll come here and write color, and I write hashtag I think I'll just use this. I think we use this, not even I think, we use this a lot when we are doing the sign up form. So that's it. So as you can see now, I can be able to visibly see my text that I want. So the next thing that I want to do is to be able to style these list items. So I'll come here. So remember, we created them using the UL, and I told you UL means it is unordered. When we say unordered, it is not numbered, it comes with bullet points. The other way you can add a list is using ordered. Ordered, you write OL. If I write here OL, you'll see it will change automatically. It will now become 1, 2, 3. It starts adding numbers on its own. So those are the two different ways you can add a list, either using an ordered or ordered. And whenever you write, you specify if you want an ordered or ordered, you get inside now and type the list item. So LI, LI, LI. So that shows that these are the list items, whatever you want to appear on the list. Okay, so I'll now move on and see how we can style these list items. So I'll come here and I will write ULLI. What does this mean? This means I am styling the list items inside the unordered list. So I'll come here and I will say in the CSS, and I'll say I want the cursor to be pointer. What does this mean? I want to add such that if I move my mouse over it, it shows a pointer. So let me show you the different ways you can put a cursor. So I hope you guys know the cursor is the mouse tracking that you see whenever you are tracking with your mouse, like what you the image that you see, the icon is an icon. The icon that you see whenever you are hovering with your mouse, we call that the cursor. So because your mouse is whatever you have, either you use a mouse or a touchpad. Touchpad is what, if you normally use whatever is on your keyboard, that is the touchpad. Mouse is the physical. For those who, if you have a physical like this, then you're using a mouse. So if I come here, there are so many ways you can add a cursor. So this is known as an alias. This is known as a scroll. This is known as the auto. It's usually the default. This is known as the cell. This is for resizing. I'm so sure you have seen this when you're resizing a column or decreasing. It's because they have added a cursor known as call resize. We have context menu. We have for copying. Whenever we want to copy something, when you right click and want to copy, you see that cursor. We have what we call crosshair. Well, mostly you'll see this when maybe you're trying to drag something or something like that. This is the default. Also, we have e-resize. This is for the horizontal. We have like the one that is complete. We have the grab. This is especially when you're dragging something in your laptop. You normally see that. There are so many. So I'll just send you this list so that you can go ahead and look at it in your own free time. Okay, so we have our cursor. So I have just gone ahead and said I want it to be pointer. So the difference is now when I move, Oh, I should not have refreshed. You should not refresh your Visual Studio. It will change. It will close the project, especially on the browser. But if it was on your laptop, ideally it would not. Wait, let me, open to-do list. Yep. So let me go back. So now when I move my mouse, it has picked it up. Now it is showing a pointer. Like the pointer is the finger that looks like this. So that is the pointer. So so after that, the next thing is we are going to say the position is relative. We are going to add more styling and say the position for the list items should be relative. So for those who do not know what it means when we say position, this is basically positioning elements based on the flow of the document. So I'm just going to show you what it means in a few. So if I come here and I click on position, and we really touched on a lot on this when we were doing the login form on position in CSS. So I'll just use this. So position static is mostly used to, and even if you come here at the bottom, they have kinda explained. So position static, the element is positioned according to the normal flow of the document. And then relative, the element is positioned according to the normal flow of the document, and then it is offset relative to itself based on the values. So for example, here we have our an ordered list, and we want to make sure that the list items are positioned relative. So now if I try to adjust, it will be based on the normal flow of the document and the values that you give it specifically. If you want it to move to the left, 50%. If you wanted to move to the top, maybe 20% of the top margin, you specify that. We also have position absolute. The element is removed from the normal document flow, and no space is created for the element in the page layout. So mostly whenever you say something is position absolute, even if we look at this example here, it has been removed from the normal flow of the document, and it mostly just relies on whatever you tell it now. If you want it to be top 40px and left 40px, it will be so. If you look at relative, the one that is related to the normal flow of the document, as you can see, 40px and left 40px look a little bit different. So it's because this is relative and this is position absolute. So those are mostly the ones we will use. So those are mostly the ones that I will talk about. But you can definitely take some time and go through this to understand the different positions that are there. Sent also the link to that in the chat section. It's important that you normally take time to see these resources, so that you guys know what it's like to understand tech beyond class, because there is so much that you can do in technology, and it is good to know what you are capable of. So the other thing is adding a padding. A padding is the space around the element. What we mean by the space around the element is that every element normally has a space around it. So some of you, maybe when you are seated, you tell somebody, hey, you're in my space, or you're too close to me, or you're standing too far away from me, because there is a space around you. So that space, you can consider it the padding. So I'll give the left side of my padding, so this is like your left side. So I'll give it 12px. So I can come here and say padding left. I can also now continue and say padding bottom. So at the bottom of yourself, do you want some space? I can be like, yes, give it 8px. And then I can continue and say padding. Now, right on the right side, do you want some space? Yes. So this is like you're putting some space around you, so that if anyone wants to get near you, they know, okay, I should not be 12px or so and so. And then I will put padding top. So you can put padding on all sides. So remember, padding is the space around you or around the element. So here we are giving values to those spaces. Let us see if we can see a notable difference. So now you can see there is some difference. The items are separate from each other. There is actually a difference after we have added the padding. The next thing I'll do is increase the size. So if I zoom out, these items are very, very they are very, the size is very, very small. So let me add some space. I mean, add the size so that it's a little bit better and such that I don't have to zoom out for you to see. So I write font size. Oh, sorry, font size. And I'll give it a font size of, I can say 18px. So if I refresh my browser now, so it has increased. It might not seem like much. If I want, I can add. It is not cast on stone that is the only photo. So I've added it to 28. So that is what we can have for now. If we want to add more, we'll just come back to font size and add it. So yeah, I think let us leave it at that point. We will come back to adding more stylings there. So the next thing I will say is I want to have a particular background color whenever I hover over the element. So I'll come here over the list element. So I'll say UL LI and I'll put hover. So this will allow us to have a background color whenever we hover. So I'll say background color. And what I can do is I can slightly change that background color. So to be a different shade of black. So I can come back to my color picker. I think I accidentally closed it. Also here there is already a color picker. Whenever you search it, you'll just find it here. So also this, there is nothing wrong with this, by the way. It is still okay. So I can choose maybe that. Yeah, that is okay. And copy it and go and paste it. Let us see if it will agree with our font. Yeah, so when I hover, I can see the background color is now changing. So that is good. So yeah, so in case you have a question, just make sure you edit that. So the other thing we want is when we click on this list items, we want to see that line. So to make that possible, we'll come here and say ULLI and we'll say here I'll come and add just a minute. Oh, okay. So in one of the elements that I have here, okay, in one of the elements that I have here, I'm going to give it a class name checked. So yeah, we can use the word checked or we can say done, so that it shows that that element is already done. So I'll pick that and then I will come and say where the element has the list element that has the class name done, because we are doing a to-do list. What do we want it to do? We want it to change the background color. So I'll just put 666. It's a particular color that is there. And I want it to have a text decoration. So text decoration is what will allow us to have that line. So I write line through. So now let me come here to my to-do list. If I refresh, I can see that now the word Go YouTube Live now has a line and it has a particular background color showing that, oh, this is the item that's already been that has already been done. So what I will do is I will add a tick at the front to show that that is also done. So I'll come here. We used this property before where we say UL. So maybe let me repeat something. Here we said UL. When I say UL, I'm saying go to the unordered list that has the list item. Okay, and then when I come and add dot done, I mean go to the unordered list that has the class done. Whenever we have the word class, we normally start with a full stop. But when we say full colon hover, we mean whenever we move our mouse over it. So that is just what that means. So now I am going to come and say capture and say UL li dot done and put two colons and say before. So what I mean is before that list item, I want you to add something, and I'm going to say the content to be an empty string. So a string is just a sentence or a word, and sometimes if you don't have anything to put, you add that empty string. So that is what I am going to do, and I'm going to say position to be absolute. So we have looked at what it means when we say absolute, and then now we say border color. So every element normally has a border. Just like you also have, even this country has a border. So every HTML element has a border, and sometimes you might want to put some border color. So we can say the color I want it to be. So there is a shade and a CCC. So I have not cramped this. It's just because I have, as I showed you, we have a project that we had already done on this. So I already have that code. And then I'll say border style. I want it to be solid. So what that means is, for example, if I come here and I look up border in CSS, what does that mean? It means the space around the elements. So for example, there is this element here has a border on all sides and it is black. This element has a border that on the bottom and it is red. This one has a border that is light gray and this border is curved, but in CSS we call it rounded. And then this one has a left border that is blue in color. So you can have different types of border styles. You can have dotted, you can have dashed, you can have solid. So solid is just very continuous. You can have double. You can have what we call a groove. A groove is like, if you look at it keenly, you will see that difference. And then we have also ridge, inset, and outset. So these are just things that you need to look at more. We have no border. Sometimes you might hide the border, and sometimes you might mix up the different types of borders that you have. So if you want to edit the size of the border, you normally use border width. So this one has a 5px border width. This is 2px and so forth. If you want to edit the color, you can use the border color and you give it different colors. So like this is red, this is green, this is blue, and so forth. And then we have border sides, which now specify the different types of sites that are there when you're dealing with a border. So I'll just send this so that you guys can have a look at it more. Yep, there it is. So let me move on. So we have our before. So content, the position is absolute. You have given it a border style, a border width. Or let me give it a border width. So border width. So I can, rather than using the word border width, I can say I want the border bottom to be 2px. That is the size. I can also come and say I want the border left to be 2px as well. So that is just what I'll use. Let's just see if you'll see the difference. So there is a small thing that is there that we might not be able to see it now, but I will add its size so that you guys can easily see it. So I'll come ahead now and say top to be 10px. So what we mean is leave at the top, leave a space of 10px, and on the left side leave a space of 16px. And then we have done this before, but I will explain what this means. We have what we call the transform property that also allows us to position our elements differently and in different ways. So this time I'll say I'll use rotate and I'll say that 45 degrees. So what that means, if I come here to my CSS and write transform, there is this transform property, and the transform property normally have different values. So last time in the login and logout form, we used transform translate. So here we are using transform rotate. So if I say rotate, it rotates to a particular angle. So if I come here and I say I want you to rotate 45 degrees, you can see it is rotating. If I put 90, it's rotating. So that is what we are actually doing. There is an element that we want to rotate accordingly. Okay, so after that we have a height. And we're going to say the height is 15px. And we're going to give it a width of 7px. So if we look at it now, so it's a check mark here, but you cannot see it well. I think we have messed around something with the rotation. It is upside down. So I'll come ahead and work on that. Oh, I think I got it. Let me see. Wait, how did it look like right now? It was upside down. So what about negative 90? You can also put a negative value here. Okay, negative 45. The value that I have and the value that is here seems to be contradicting each other. So so we have rotate. So we have a small tick here, maybe just to zoom out so you guys can see there is this tick that we want whenever we click on something to appear. So that is what I am trying to work on it to be upright. For some reason it is rotating in all the other degrees, sorry, all the other values apart from what I expect it to do. Oops, negative. Okay, let us first leave it at 45. We'll come back to it. Because I have put position absolute, so not position that is affecting it. So it should be working as expected. So, but we'll come back to it. Yeah, that should be working. In my code it was working. What have I not done properly? Let me see. I don't know if this is what is affecting. Let me see if I put a box sizing on the whole body. Border box and see if that will change. Okay, there it is. Let me refresh. Okay, that has changed. Did I put? Let's see if I remove any border and margin on the unordered list. Does that affect? So I'm just trying to correct an error. Okay, that removes that those dots that we had. That is no problem. So I want this list item, this tick, to be positioned correctly. It is not positioned correctly. So I'm trying to figure out where I have gone wrong so that it behaves as we expect it to. Yeah, so this is the code here, the one for rotation. So try 90. About negative 90. I want it to first turn direction. So it's just looking up and down. So this is 90. We have seen that is negative 90. 90 is, that makes sense. So I want it to face like this. 90. Negative 90. 90. What about 180? Trying to do the math here. 180 is upwards. Let's try 120. Yep, got it. So now it will be negative 120. Oh, I didn't got it. Wait, 120 was how? So I need it to be the opposite of that side. So if this is 120, we now need it to be this way. So 120. So we continue. Let me try 160. Let me try negative 160. This 240 is coming back to the same 120. Okay, I will I will have to sit back and see, because in my laptop it is working with 45 degrees, or in the past project that I wrote. So I thought it would work as it should, but it has refused. So I'll just figure it out and then I will correct it later on. So we can actually remove this part for now. Let me put 45 degrees. Rotate 45 degrees. Okay, I leave it for now, but we will come back to it. So at least now, whenever we click done, we get this line and so forth. So that is what I will continue with. So I will just continue and type that. So I'll say we want to be able to have it striked out whenever we click done. So I'll say, what did I say here? ULLI, done, yeah. So you will edit it more on the JavaScript side. So the next thing I'll edit right now, I've realized if I want to be able to change whenever I click it, that is JavaScript, because JavaScript is what we do with interactivity. That is, whenever you click something, something happens. So let me go to my to-do list, that title, and then the rest we will come back as we are adding JavaScript. So I'll say header, I'll put the background color, or maybe we can put some color. Yeah, let us just put also a background color to the header, and we say we want it to be hashtag 1F1F1F, and then I'll put some padding, 30px. So I'll put some padding left. And so I've said padding is the space around an element. So if I have a space around you, that is a padding. So I'll say padding bottom to be 40px. So the next thing we'll do is align the text to the center. And this will allow us to be able to have our text there at the center. So now we can see we have a good heading and all that. So let us now move on to the JavaScript, that is the interactivity, so that we can add the X and we can style it. So I'll come here to my JavaScript. So I have to connect my HTML to my JavaScript. So right before the body tag, the closing body tag, I'm going to write script. So this is how we connect our HTML to a JavaScript, and write src script.js, and I close that here. So we have now connected our JavaScript to our HTML. So now I'll go ahead and start adding code. So the first thing that I want to do is to add a close button. As you can see, we can't close any code. Or let us first start with adding, whenever I click, it cancels the list. So I'll come here and I'll say, I'll create a variable. I'll call this variable list. So I'll say var list is equals to document. So remember, this is how you get the HTML code. I'll say document.query selector. So this is to fetch the element that we want. Query selector UL, meaning an ordered list. And then I'll say, now this list, add an event listener. So this will, like I said in the previous classes, an event listener just listens in to you doing something on the website. And when you do it, it runs a particular code. So here I'm saying add an event listener, that whenever our user clicks, we want something to happen. If I click on a list item, I want something to happen. So I'll come here and I say, add an event listener, click. So this will allow me, whenever I click, something actually happens. And then I'll say, I'll create now an arrow function. So an arrow function, we add it using this brackets. We put the word E so that it listens in on the event. And then we use that arrow. So that is what makes it to be an arrow function. And then we say if E, so if you click on that event, I want you to go to the element that has a tag name li, or you can add it also in small and say li, and then put a curly bracket like that, and then you say, what do you want it to happen? I want it to change to be a done class. So I can say ev dot target, and then add a class list of done. So in case this does not happen, in case you yes, so if, and then now we can say else you have not clicked on it, so it's like false. So I'll come here and I will run this now. So we want, whenever we check, we want it to edit our tag name. So wait, let me try and change this to capital. If I refresh, where are you stuck? Where are you stuck? Let me just see if there is an error in the console. So undefined reading class list. So there is an error on line 4. So let me have a look at it. Oh, here written, oh, it's auto-corrected itself. That is why. So let me now refresh. So now when I tick on it, it changes to checked. As you can see, if I tick on an element, now it becomes checked. And if I untick, it removes the check. If I tick, it becomes checked. If I untick, it removes the check. So it will help us to cancel each and every element. So the next thing that I will do is I will now make sure that we have an X button here, or a delete button, that we can be able to add our deleted items whenever we want. So I'll come here and I will say excuse me, I'll say list item. I'll call this list items. I'll create this variable. So remember, for those who that do not know what a variable is, maybe because you're not there in the last classes, a variable is a code. A variable is a memory location. It creates a memory location. For example, I gave the example of, you guys have a drawer, I'm so sure, or a cabinet where you store your clothes. Maybe you have a cabinet where you specifically store your socks. So in programming, you would call that storage a variable, and then the variable name is the name of that drawer. So for example, if that drawer is where you store your socks, you'll say this is the sock drawer. And then the values will be the different types of socks you can find in there. Maybe you have a blue socks, you have red socks, you have black socks, you have white socks, school socks, and stuff like that. So the same thing, when we come to programming, variables allow us to create memory locations that we can add or store values in. And the good thing about when creating a variable, you can be able to remove a variable and delete a variable. And that is what we are going to do. We are going to create a variable that stores all the to-do list items that we add, but now we are going to do one that allows us to be able to delete. But for now, let us see if we can get all the items in the list. So I'll come here and I'll say document dot get elements. So we can get it by the tag name that we have. So the tag name is basically the HTML tag. So we have div, we have h2, we have ul, we have li. So all our list items, we are adding them using the li tag. So I'll come here and I say get elements by tag name and get all the elements that have an li or that are a list. And then maybe we can console log this to see if we actually are able to get all the elements in the list items, or they have been stored successfully in the list items. So all the elements that are in the list items, currently we only have two. We have the first one, go live on YouTube, and the second one, go to the mall. So we expect if we are storing all the elements that are in the list items, we want them to be seen in the list items variable. So I'll come here and I will right click to inspect, and I will do console. So if I refresh, or I need to refresh, I'll see that it shows me that you have two list items. The first one has a class name done, and you can see when I hover, it shows on the HTML, it highlights on the HTML side, and we have the second one. And if I go to my HTML, it is true. I have one list items that has a class name done and the other one does not, but it is there. So it has shown, this proves that we have been able to store our list items inside the variable called list items. So the next thing is, how can I be able to add the close or the delete button on each and every one of them? So what I'm going to do is I am going to say going to use what we call iteration. Iteration means, and I gave this example last time, I said, for example, if you guys have a register, I'm so sure when you go to school, there is a register that the teacher reads out when they are calling the different student names and marking your attendance. So the same thing, we can have a list item that allows us to be able to mark the register of the different students that we have. So we can come and say, for let I to be is equals to 0, and then we are going to say I. So let just create a variable using, actually this should not be var, it should be let. So we can create a variable using two ways. We can create using let and const. Const means it is constant. Let means you can be able to add you can be able to edit it. For example, if I tell you inside your sock drawer, do not add a new socks or remove the socks that you have. So I have made sure that the number of socks you currently have, that is constant. However, if I will tell you, oh, I will add you more socks next week, or I will throw away the socks that are worn out, that means that we have stored our socks inside the let keyword, So I'll come and say let I be is equals to 0 and let I. So I have created a variable that will allow me to iterate, to go through all these list items one after the other. So we are using what we call a for loop. And to not only go through these list items, but to also add an X on it so that we can delete. So I'll say let I be less than my list items And whenever it is less than that list items and the length of those list items, like how many they are, I want you to increase it by 1. So this is the way we make our code to count how many elements we have, okay? And to count one at a time. So we are telling it count each element at a time, create a variable called I, and give it the value 0. As long as I is less than the list items we have, increase by 1. So we are iterating as we are counting. So, and then we come and say, I want you to create a new variable called span. So for those of you who are with me, I told you span allows us to be able to add different elements in the same HTML tag. So that's basically what we are doing here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and add on it. So let's span to be is equals to documents dot create element span. So we are creating a HTML element from the JavaScript side, and we are creating a span element. This allows us to add another element inside of another element on the same line. So I'm going to say create another element called the delete. I'll call this the delete icon. And this element create, so I'll say document. So I'm still editing document. I'm still editing my HTML code using my JavaScript. So I'll say in here, create what we call a text node. So this is just creating a new HTML element. So don't panic. It's just that the HTML element is a text. And then the icon X in programming can be added using these numbers. So that's basically just what we are adding. So this will add that X icon, okay? And then I will say I want this to be this delete icon. Let me just put a capital I here. This delete icon to be inside the span, and I will also add that, I'll also give that span a class name. So I can come here and say span class name is equals to close. And then I will say now let the span class have the delete icon inside of it. So we call that giving it a child element. So I will append a child element. So appending is just basically making the class to, I mean the span in this case, to have an element inside of it, which is the delete icon. Sorry, not txt, but delete icon. So now we will have an element span that inside of it we have the delete icon. So now I'll go ahead and in each list item, I will append the span element. So I'll come and say list items. Yeah, I want you to go ahead and each list item, so we give it I want you to go ahead and append child span. So if I look at my code now, I need to style these elements. I need to style those, what is it called? That close icon, so that delete icon, so we can be able to see it. So I'll come back to my CSS, and I will say, so we have our elements. What did we give it? The class, we gave it the class name close. So I'll come here and I'll say dot close. I'll give it a position absolute. I'm also going to say the right position to be 0, the top to be 0. I'm also going to say the padding to be 12px, 16px. And I'm also going to give it a color. So just a big red color, just a shade of red. And I can also tell it the background color to be transparent so that it just matches the background. So if I come here and I refresh, let us see if you see some difference. Not yet, but don't worry not. So I'll come ahead and say we have to see it on hover. So I'll say dot close hover. We want the background color to be that red and to have a color white in the text. So let us see if now it collaborates. Wait, where is it? Let me see, is there an error? No, there's no error. Okay, let me look at the elements. So it has added it. Oh, I can see it. It's something I have missed. Did I put the oh, this should be a D. Should be U00D7. So let us see. Yes, so voila, so here we have, the X, but now you can see when I hover, it is projecting or it is showing automatically. So our goal is to now make sure that when I click on it, something actually happens. Okay, so now we have added an X on every list item. The reason we did not add this on the HTML side is because we are going to be adding new list items. So we have to add it on the HTML side so that anytime we add a new to-do list item, it also comes with a close. So to make sure that you are not seeing the element that you click X, we will come here. We'll come back to our JavaScript, and then we will say get all elements that have the class name close. So I'll come here and I'll say that we can say delete element. So this is anything you want to delete. Let me say delete to do. Yeah, that is better. We say document. So this is when you want to delete. We say document dot get elements by class name. So now I'm going. So remember, every element, whenever we click this X, we give that class a name close. We might not be able to see it on the HTML, but it is added. Anytime you click, you give it a new class close. Even we can call that class. We can change here. We can, rather than writing close, we can write delete, so that you know you're deleting. Whenever you add that word delete, whenever you click that X, you are giving that element delete. Let me also just make sure I edit the CSS side. It's good to use language that you can, if you look at your code, you can understand what was happening. So here I'm going to say, let delete to do to be all the elements that have a class name delete. Okay. And then we say for, we'll use for loop again. So we say for. So this will allow us to go over each element that has the class name delete and to delete it. So we say let I to be is equals to 0. So let I be less than the list items. So the items, so we are going through each element on the list. And so let I to be is equals to the list to be less than the length of those items, and then increase I by 1. Okay, and then now we go to our curly bracket and we say list items. So the value I, so this will be changing. If it's at 0, it will be the first list. If it has 1, it is the second. So it normally starts at 0. So because we have given it 0 here, we have said I is equals to 0. So we say on click, anytime I click on that, sorry. On click, what do I want to happen? I want it to, I'll create an arrow function. Of what I want to happen. I want it to go to that element, go to the parent element. So the parent element of our list item is going to be, so remember we created anything, inside the list item we created an element known as span that had a class name delete, and that delete is what has the icon X. So now we are saying go to the parent element. So the parent element is the li, because anytime what happens anytime I click, if I look at this go to the mall, if I look at it here, it just go to the mall, and there is inside of it there is a span class that has a class name close, but we have changed it to delete. So if I click on it, automatically it adds this class name span inside the element li. So span is a child of li. So I'll come here and say go to the parent element of span, which is li, and hide it. So we say I'll say span parent. Let me call it span parent. And say this dot parent element. This will allow me to automatically get access to the parent element. It's adding its own things. And then say span parent dot style dot display to be none. So what will happen is that every time you want to see something, it will be hidden inside the display whenever I click on the X. So let me refresh. So it will seem like it is deleting, but in real sense, it's hiding. And that is something, by the way, I want to tell you guys. Whenever you upload anything on the internet and then you say delete, ideally, it does not delete, it hides. Even if it is on any social media platform, anything, it does not delete, it hides it. That is why sometimes some things you normally find them in the trash, and they tell you you can restore, stuff like that. So anything that you add, we do not delete. So if I come here to the X and I click on it, wait, do I have another error? I click on the X, this should be working. Let me see, what have I done? Oh, I have not. I think I have an idea of why this is not working. I have refreshed my Visual Studio. No, I should not. Let me go. Okay, great. Recovered me. Remember, anytime you refresh, you have to get those projects again. So I'll come here and I'll say list items on click. No, this is not correct. I'm going to just change this a little bit, and I'm going to say, I'll use the add event listener that we have been adding. So I'll say add event listener. Okay. Add event listener. And then I'll say click. If I click on it, what do I want it to do? I want it to go ahead and, using the event tracker, add an arrow function where it's why did the first part work? On click. Let me refresh. This should work. Let me try and save. Okay, let me refresh. What have I gotten wrong? List items for oh, I have seen. This should be delete to do. This should be delete to do. I was referencing the list items rather than the ones that have the class name delete. Delete to do. I will repeat this step again, so that to make sure you guys are not completely lost. And this should also be delete to do. Okay, so I know JavaScript is not usually, it's an amazing programming language, because you see what you want to see, and whatever you want to do, you manipulate it, but the learning curve sometimes is not as favorable. Let me see. There is an error. Cannot set properties of undefined setting on click on line 28. There is an error. So let's to do. I think now I have corrected it. And the other one was on line 25. Reading style and quote properties on click. Excuse me. Okay, let me refresh. So the problem is just on the on click. If it's a capital, does that change? Okay, it does not. So it's saying class name delete. Go to the elements. Yeah, here they are, class name delete. Also this one has class name delete. So what is the problem? Okay, I think I know what I can do. Let me console log delete to do to make sure I'm getting exactly what I want. So if I refresh, yeah, okay, great, it is capturing that. So the problem is here. Okay, so what if I, rather than using an arrow function, I don't know why this would give me a harder time. I just use then a function. Will that make a difference? No, it would not. Oh yeah, it has worked. What? Wait, let me return. I would want to stick with the arrow functions just because. Okay. Okay, so the problem is that arrow function. Because we have written it. Click is equals to function. So I'll have to use the word function here. It's not picking up my arrow function. It's picking up a function declaration. So I'll do that and close it. So when I close, at least now it hides. So because we had added this to the code, that's why whenever I refresh, we see it. So now anytime I delete, it works. Let me just repeat what I have done in that code to ease your understanding, because even I can see we are almost out of time, so that tomorrow we'll just add the new element and add the icon for adding the to do. So here what I have done is, first of all, starting with the structure, I created a div that has a class, that contains the header. And I went ahead and created an ordered list that has two list items. I connected the HTML and the JavaScript. So we say the HTML is where we add our styling. So that's what I have done. And I have also connected my JavaScript here. So we connect JavaScript using the script tag. So I'll recap on the JavaScript side. So what the first thing I did is to make sure that whenever I click on a list item, it checks as done. And if I unclick, it removes the done. This will allow me to go to my list items and check out anything that I have already finished doing or working on. So to do that, I get all the elements inside the list, that is the UL. So I get all of them using the UL tag. And then I say, I want you to add an event listener click, that when I click on it, I want something to happen. And I want you to go to all the elements that have the tag name li. Anything that has the tag name li, that's what I want you to look at. And I want you to go ahead and add a class known as done, so that whenever I click on it, it changes the class name, or it adds the class name done. What now that will do is any element that we styled here, so we came here and we did say any element inside the list item that has a class name done, change the background and change the text in the line so that we can have that line. So now that code enables me that anytime I click, there is a line. So it shows me I have finished doing that task. The next thing I did in my JavaScript, I went ahead and got all the elements in the list items. And in this case, there are only two: go live on YouTube and go to the mall. So I will now come ahead and say and add a for loop. The for loop adds me to iterate, allows me to iterate. Iterating is going through one after the other. It's like how your teacher gets the class list and marks attendance. They call you out one after the other. So it now goes ahead and says the first value, give it a 0, and then as you go through the elements, as long as it's less than the length, add 1. That will allow me to start with the first element. The first element will be given a 0, the next one will be given a 1. Okay, but we know there are two elements, so it will stick to that as long as those elements are less than those two. And then as you do that, create a new element called span, and inside that element, add an X icon. This is to add that X, this X that you're seeing here, this one. And as you add that X, give it a class name delete, so that anytime you click on this X, this span knows this adds a span class that has a delete class, and then append that class to the delete icon. So what now this does is when we go to on the HTML side, you won't see these changes. These changes are done on the JavaScript side. So to see them, you have to click inspect. And when you click inspect, you will notice that now all elements have class done. If I go to my HTML code, only one has class done. Only one. And even now I can remove it. Nothing will happen. But now both of them we have class done and class done. Okay? So after that, inside those classes, here you can't see something written span class, but when I come here, I will see span class, delete, and the X icon. All this has been added by this code here. This code here. This is what has allowed us to add that span class and that has a delete and that X. That has been accomplished using this code. So we have created the span class. This second line adds the delete icon, and then it gives the span a class name delete and adds the delete icon inside the class. So the span. So we see we have a class delete. The icon is inside the span. The next thing is we come to the deleting, now actually being able to delete. So because we added a delete, we added the delete class here, we are going to say go and get all the elements that have a class name delete and iterate all of them. Iterate is going through one after the other. As you iterate all of them, add an on-click function that when I click on it, it hides. And I have told you guys, even for when anything you do on social media, even when you click delete, it does not completely disappear, it just hides. So that is the same thing we do here. We just hide. So if I click X, my code just hides. It is there, but you can't see it. So it has just hidden, but that is how we add the delete functionality. So tomorrow we will learn how to add the new list item and have it show here. So that is what we will do tomorrow. Remember, our goal is to have something which looks like this. Our end result should be, oh, sorry. It's, why isn't it giving me? Let me just close that. I've opened it from the wrong, oh, there it is. Actually, it has come. Yeah. So our goal is to have something which looks like this. That when I add something here, new to do, when I add, oh, to do, sorry, to do, when I add something there, when I click add, it actually shows itself here. And when I click on it, it cancels. And when I delete it, it deletes. So I can remove everything from my to-do list and I can add a new one. So that is what we want to happen. So tomorrow we will just add this part that allows us to add the element and click add and see it. So this is the only thing we are going to do tomorrow. So remember, today we have accomplished adding the X and deleting it. And that is what we have done today. So when you come here, you can check it out. You can cancel and you can also delete. So the rest we will do tomorrow. So see you tomorrow in the session, and I hope you guys have been coding along. So if you have not, after the session, after you have had some lunch or after you have rested, come back, watch the video and also build your own to do item. That's the only way this stuff you're going to remember. So see you tomorrow. Bye bye.